Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Ranching Side. Apologize for the long hiatus. I've been meaning to get a new video out for quite a while. Since we last spoke back in October on the 12th, my wife and I welcomed our second child, Benjamin Michael, into the world. So that took me off for a little bit. I was a little bit busy at home for a week or two, and then went back to work and still working 6 days a week, my off-farm job. So I've been kind of running crazy. I started trying to record another installment of The Ranching Side back on Veterans Day, and started by wishing all of the veterans out there happy Veterans Day and thanking them for their service. It's now the Sunday after Thanksgiving, so belated happy Veterans Day to all those that served, and thank you for your service. And now we're all the way to hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving, in advance Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. So it's been a bit, and I apologize. A lot has happened, and so I'm going to try to spend a little bit of time getting people caught up on what's happened in the last 2 months here at the ranch. It's been pretty busy, so I apologize for not letting you see all of that. I do have some pictures and things that I'll sprinkle in as we explain where we're at. So where are the cows? What's going on with the cows right now? Right now we are in what's known as our winter pasture. I call it our highway field. It's a couple hundred acres over bordering Highway 49. For those of you that are familiar with that, we're basically across the highway from Angels Vet Hospital, is where we touch the highway there. This hillside, it grows really good grass early in the spring, so I move the cows over here usually late winter, and then keep them here till about March, which is what I did last year. So if you see behind me, there's quite a bit of dry feed out here that we got left behind all in these hills, because I took these cows out of this field in March, and then let it come back for a couple months. Those late spring rains, warm temperatures, all the way into June, which starts to die off, it grew back. So there's some pretty good dry feed in here. I usually try to hold off till closer to New Year's to put cows in here, but I was running low on feed some of the other fields, and this was pretty full, so decided to move the cows over here a little early. We did that about 2 weeks ago. Open up the gates to let them start coming into this field. So starting to close off that irrigated field, let it get a rest. I still have the driveway field open a little bit. That's a good water source there. There's a trough there and wells. This field only has a spring right now, so it's not a terribly good water source until we get some better rain. And then I'll close the gate and just keep them into this field. Let them really graze this down. But I want to wait a little bit. Hopefully next year, if I can get another grant through the USDA, we'll put another well over here, which will weld some troughs and get some better water going. But that's where we're at right now. So we have the cows over here. I just got done feeding some hay, and I'll show you kind of what we're feeding here, so we can talk through the supplementation process that's happening through the wintertime. So here's the majority of the cows that have come in, and the calves. You see the calves are getting a little bit bigger since the last time you all saw them, the tail end of calving season. Right now they're eating some alfalfa. I started feeding large bales, 1,000-pound bales of alfalfa to these cows a couple weeks ago. I'm feeding twice a week, about 300 to 400 pounds at a time. Basically the goal is not to fulfill them. That's what the dry grass is for. But as the grass died off in the summer and as it goes into the fall, it loses a lot of its value. It loses its protein level. So when it's growing, it's good. In the springtime and late summer, you're about 20% protein on this dry grass. Right now, as we get into the winter, it drops down to 3 or 4%. And that's not enough to keep these cows going, especially as we're trying to get them bred, trying to produce calves, all that kind of stuff. So they need more. So we're feeding this alfalfa. It's got about a 17% protein, and that'll help keep them going, keep the muscle on them, keep the body condition score up, keep them from getting thin, I should say. And that's what we're hoping for. Helps them produce good quality milk for these calves, keep them going. So that's the big thing, is protein. Some people use tubs. You see like molasses tubs, 250-pound tubs. I've done that in the past. Trying hay this year just because hay's pretty cheap. So when you look at the cost benefits, feeding hay versus putting out protein tubs, the hay is a little bit cheaper this year, so just going with that option. Additionally to supplementing with hay, we also have salt out. So I just picked up 2 of these little feeders last week, I should say. Hoping to get more in the future, but they have a lid on to keep the rain off, and inside you'll see there's a salt block on one side, and the other one is a salt block that has some minerals in it. It has trace minerals. We call it the Big Six. It's the main minerals that the cows need: calcium, phosphorus, that kind of stuff, iodine, and then just a plain salt. So there's 3 of those blocks. They're 50-pound blocks. There's 3 in each tub. There's one here, and then there's one kind of way up there in the top of the hill, so that way they can move in between. And then the spring is in between, about 200 yards past that little calf there, up in those trees. So trying to get them, all the nutrients they need as we go through the winter. It's gonna start getting cold here, so we'll start maybe feeding a little bit more hay, but trying to keep that to a minimum, just keep the cost down as best we can. So that's basically where we're at right now, is in a holding pattern, letting these calves grow, letting these cows get exposed to the bulls, so they can get bred and start getting ready to calve again next August. And then in here somewhere I have 2 bulls. So one right there looking at us with the white tag here. I'll kind of walk him out. This is 356. He's from Person and Sons Cattle Company down in Clovis. I just recently purchased him from a gentleman that runs the beef unit at Fresno State. He's kind of a small bull. He's young, so he's got some growth to do. He's about 17 months old, so he'll get bigger, but he's big enough now that he can still do the job, get these cows bred. And then in addition to him, over here on the other side of this cow, we also have this bull that I'm borrowing from a friend. I'm renting him, I should say. So I'm down bulls right now. I had to sell both my bulls last year. We can talk about that at a later time of what happened there when we get into the spring. But I have 2 bulls in right now with these cows. The majority of the cows are here. There's 42 here at the home ranch, and then I think I mentioned in a previous video, but I have 80 acres over in Mountain Ranch off Swiss Ranch Road. I have 3 cows over there that are kind of on a different cycle than the rest of these. There's a few in here that are on that cycle too. So when I talk about the cycle, what I'm meaning is, back in one of the first videos we explained this is a fall calving herd, and you all got to watch along a little bit with calving August, September to the beginning of October when we were calving out calves. Last year, for some reason, I had a handful of cows, actually more than a handful, 17 in total, that came through not bred. They didn't breed last fall like they were supposed to. Not 100% sure if it was the bulls or if it was the cows, but ended up selling those bulls. I just put kind of the predicament I'm in right now with renting a bull. And a few of those cows were older cows or thinner, ones I didn't really like, so I ended up selling them and cutting down a little bit. The rest, there was another 11 that I ended up holding on to. And what I decided to do with them initially, I put them back with bulls and bred them to calve in the spring. So that's what they're going to do. So there's 3 at the Swiss Ranch property that I lease, and then there's 8 here that are going to be calving around February or March. My original plan was to sell them as bred cows and then try to buy cows back, separate cows that fit our program. But in thinking about it, what I've decided to do is I'm going to probably keep those cows and just run a fall calving herd and a spring calving herd for a little bit. Run a little bit of an experiment, see if one profits better than the other, if they do better on the grass and raise bigger calves, that kind of thing. Just play around a little bit and see if it works out where the spring cows are being more profitable, better for the conditions. I may end up moving the entire herd over. So we'll see, but that's where we're at right now. One of the other things that did get missed since the last time we spoke was branding. And I did want to touch on that, and I'm going to get into it a little bit later in this video, but we did get all these calves branded in November. I had a couple of friends that came and helped me. So we did vaccinations on all these calves, and I'll get into the vaccinations here a little bit when we finish up this video at the home office. But they're all vaccinated. They all have the 75 brand on them. That's the 75 part of Ranch 75 Cattle Company, in case anybody was wondering. And they all got ear tags. Some of them got missed at calving, or I didn't feel safe to put a tag in the calf because the cow might come after me. So we tagged all of those, and then all the bull calves, all the boys got castrated at that time. And so again, when we get into the vaccines and the branding part here in a little bit, I'll get into further detail on that. But here's the herd. Everybody's doing good. Everybody looks good. I'm pretty happy with them. I've been here for about 15 minutes filming this and watching these cows, and haven't heard anybody cough, haven't heard any signs of illness. A few of the cows are a little bit thinner than I'd like, but for the most part, we're doing pretty good in terms of fat condition. Those kind of things going into winter when it's going to be a little bit harder on them. Obviously the feed quality goes down. So the protein should help in this hay, and if it looks like they're falling off a little bit too much, then we'll reevaluate, maybe increase the amount of hay or add another protein source, a tub or something like that if we need to. I'm back here in my home office now, which is in the basement of my house. It's a storage area for all of our stuff that we don't have room for in our lives, but it also is a storage area for the ranch. I have a fridge down here, have a sink, a little counter space. I keep all of our vaccines and equipment down here, things that need to stay out of the weather, you can't just hang out in the barn. Things that need to stay in that fridge, or just want to have on hand so I can get ready to go when we work cows. So I mentioned going through some of the vaccines that we give the cows, the calves, when we're branding, and going through the branding system. So we'll bring the cows into the corral, sort the calves off, and then we start bringing the calves in through what's called the calf table. So what it does is it catches around the neck, secures the head. It doesn't choke them off, but it restrains at the neck, restrains at the rib, and then it has a door that opens up on the side so it can tip over flat like a table. So it goes from a standing position to a flat sideways position. And then there's a rope that goes around the hind legs and pulls them tight so that they are restrained. They can't kick anybody. They can't injure us. Sometimes they try. And then we can do the things that we need to do for their health. So the first thing that happens is that we will, if they're bull calves, we start working on castration, and usually that's me that does that, or somebody more experienced. But it's one of those things where it's the highest risk of infection, of something going wrong. So I like to do that job just because I want to know that if it goes wrong, it's on me and it's not on somebody that came to help me. It gives me peace of mind that it's being done as the best that I can. But also, I just, if I was helping somebody else and I castrated their calves and something happened, that calf died, I would feel terrible. And I don't want to put one of my friends in that position. So we'll remove the testicles from the bull calves. Very controversial. I understand that. There's some people that, dispute that practice. Here's the reason behind it from my standpoint. As bull calves age, they produce more and more testosterone. That creates, number one, a food quality issue. The meat in a bull, it's much more lean. It's very tough. It's not a very good eating quality. So in terms of just value of the steaks on that calf, the roast, everything else, the cutout value of that calf as it gets older, it goes down because the meat quality is not there. People don't want to eat real tough meat. You end up having to grind. Most bulls, they getting ground into ground beef, the entirety of it. So it by removing that testosterone inducer, removing the testicles that produce it, you're going to get a better quality product. Number two, it's a safety thing, right? Bulls can be more aggressive. They have more testosterone. They're stronger. They're more territorial. And so as steers, which is what we call them after we castrate them, we're creating a more docile animal. It's easier to work around. And the third thing is from a genetic control standpoint. Not every calf has the quality genetics that we want to be breeding other cows and passing those genetics on. Okay, we don't want everybody's genes in the gene pool. You only want the best quality. So there's no sense in keeping calves as bulls that have no need to breed, no desire for us to have them breed. And eventually, if we left them as bull calves, they could start breeding heifers, breeding other cows as early as 8, 9, 10 months. That would get really tricky as we get into the spring and the summer, and we get later into the year-long series of these videos if we had steers still as bull calves, trying to keep them separate from the females. So by castrating them, we remove inferior genetics out of the gene pool. It helps us keep, as a industry whole, a higher quality product in terms of the genetic disposition of the cows, genetic makeup of the nation's cow herd, and a safer herd, safer calves, and it keeps a better quality meat supply that the nation wants. So it makes us more profitable. And at the end of the day, this is a business. So that's what we're looking for. So that's the first thing, that we're going to cut those calves. The second thing is we're going to give some vaccines. So on my messy desk here is the 5 things that we give. So I kind of go in a weird order here, but the first thing, this isn't necessarily, in order of injection, but just what I want to talk about. So this is Biomectin. Some people give Ivermectin as a name brand. Biomectin is kind of a generic brand of ivermectin. And ivermectin is a dewormer. Okay, so this is injected. It's an internal dewormer. It helps with internal parasites as well as external parasites. But the rule of thumb is things that are given internally, so either orally or injected into the muscle, things like that, are more effective on internal parasites. Dewormers, ivermectins that are given topically are more effective with external parasites. So we tend to rotate. We'll do an injectable in the wintertime, and then we'll do a topical or a pour-on ivermectin when we do a second round in the spring. And that we were doing both. Same with the cows. Usually we'll give an injectable in the winter and a topical in the spring or summer. Mostly the reason is a topical can get washed off if it rains. So, this year we happened to brand cows on a rainy day. If I were to give a topical to those cows that day, but it would have washed off within 24 hours and had no purpose. So ivermectin for the internal, mostly parasites. The second thing is Enforce 3. This is a respiratory, so it goes into the nose. It's sprayed into the nose, 2 milligrams or 2 cc's. So this helps with all sorts of respiratory vaccines, rhinotracheitis, influenza, pneumonia, all those kinds of things. Just a good booster for those calves. It's a modified live virus, but it gets in pretty quick. Helps keep them healthy on a respiratory level. The next thing that we give is Nasalgen. So this is another respiratory. It covers some other things that the other one doesn't. But another nasal injectable, another 2 milligrams. So this is going to help, again, with respiratory vaccines, Pastorella, that kind of stuff. Helps keep those calves healthy that way. Number 4, this is Ultra Choice 8, which is the brand name from Zoetis. This is what we call a clostridial. So this does, all those things that are on the label there, does blackleg, things like that. Much more in terms of the digestible enzymes, GI kind of bacteria, that kind of thing. Keep those calves healthy. From an internal side, and the rest of their digestive system and things like that. And then finally, this is Multimin 90. Basically what this is a concentrated multi-mineral. It's similar to like somebody takes a mineral supplement or vitamin supplement, something like that. Calaveras County is deeply deficient in selenium in terms of soil minerals that pass into the grass. So this has selenium, which helps with muscle development, has magnesium, has copper, has zinc. You see it right there on the label. So we'll give a little bit of that. So those the calves get those 5 vaccines at branding along with castration, and that keeps them healthy. And then, as you'll see later on in the spring, when we go to wean, when the calves are about 7 months old, they'll get a booster of all of these things. So of the 4, we'll give them a booster shot of all of those, and then we'll give them a pour on ivermectin at that time before we get ready to sell them. So these are all good products to keep the calves happy and healthy. No different than giving vaccines or shots, immunizations to children at young ages. Same thing that we're doing here. And then the last thing that the calves get, and we usually do this at the very end, so the last thing before the calves get released from the calf table and turned back out with the cows, is the brand. So the brand for Ranch 75 Cattle Company is just a 7.5 brand. It's this one here. It's been in our family for about 60 years. It came with a ranch that my grandfather had purchased back in the 60s, in the early 60s, from another family, but we've had other family brands that go back several generations. So this is the one that goes on my cows. This is registered with the state of California. There's a book that you can get on the California brand book that has every registered brand in the state in that book. So the reason for the hot iron brand is it is the only legal form of identification in the state of California for cattle. It is a permanent mark on the hide. So the brand itself gets heated up pretty hot in a propane fire. Some people use wood. We use propane. And then it leaves a burn on the hide. It burns off the hair and then leaves a permanent burn scar on the hide. That's why it's recognized. Freeze brands don't leave a permanent mark on the hide. Ear tags can be cut off, anything like that. So a hot iron brand leaves a permanent mark that cannot be removed without cutting out that hide. So that's why it's the only legal form, because it's the permanent one. So if anybody tried to steal one of my calves and they were to take the calf to an auction, the brand inspector, a state brand inspector that's at that auction, will inspect every cow and calf to make sure that the person that's selling it is the owner of that calf via the brand that's on the calf. They will verify. They'll inspect to make sure that they match. If they don't match, then they'll open an investigation, and that's usually how we find rustling and that kind of thing. So if they get lost, if they, cows get out and they're wandering down the road, if they get stolen, similar to a VIN number on a car being registered to the owner of the car, the brand on the calf is registered to the owner of the calf or the cow, and that way they can be returned or tracked down ownership, things like that. It is illegal in the state of California to put somebody else's brand on your cows. It is illegal in the state of California to possess somebody else's brand. So it is against the law for somebody else to have a 75 brand in their possession that is registered to me. Just kind of a fun fact. But that's why, it's very serious, but that's why we use the brands. That's why we do them. It leaves a permanent mark so we know whose is whose. If my cows jump the fence in a neighbor's field, they can see that brand and they can call me and say, we have one of your cows, and I'll go pick it up, bring it home, vice versa. But if somebody tries to come in and steal calves, which, I know it's not the 1800s, but it still happens every day. Calves get stolen from places all the time. And that way we can track it down. We can identify whose cows are whose. and get them returned. So that's what we've done on the branding side. And that pretty much catches everybody up to where we are now with the cows, what's happening the last 2 months. We've branded, we finished up calving. For the record, including Sweets and her little black and white calf, there's 26 calves on the ground for the fall. And then, like I said earlier, we're expecting another 11 calves in the spring. I did keep 3 of last year's calves back. I didn't sell them. I have 3 that I'm going to be sending to a feedlot here probably early part of January and start feeding out. I do have 1 of those sold, but if anybody's interested in halves of beef, you can reach out to me through social media, through YouTube. Call me or text me if you have that contact info. If you're interested in purchasing some beef from Ranch 75 Cattle Company, we will have that available for pickup in April. So that's available. That's kind of where we're at. We're just in a holding pattern, feeding cows, trying to get through the winter. Hopefully going to start doing a little bit of repair projects coming up. And as we do those, I'll try to get some videos and explain some of the winter off-season things that are happening and go from there. Another video hopefully the next couple weeks, just keeping updates going. But we are getting into a little bit of a slow season with the cows as we get into winter. It's kind of nice to get a little bit of a break. Start doing some maintenance projects like I mentioned, and then start ramping up again in the spring. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you again for liking and subscribing to these videos. We covered a lot, so if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please feel free to drop those in the comments or reach out privately if you're more comfortable that way. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Thanks for tuning in.